Following the death of King Thoradin, the Empire branched out, establishing new city-states in the untamed wilderness, one of the most prominent being Dalaran. Located in the very heart of the Empire, Dalaran rapidly transformed into a bustling hub of trade and power. People from all corners of Azeroth were drawn to the city, lured by the promise of wealth and fresh opportunities. Initially, most human magicians resided in Strom, but the restrictive atmosphere there soon drove them to seek a place where they could practice their growing powers with greater freedom. They found such a place in Dalaran, a rising trading post that seemed destined for greatness. Among the wave of immigrants was Artigan, an eccentric yet brilliant mage who quickly won the admiration of Dalaran's citizens. His influence was so profound that he was eventually elected as the city's leader. Under Artigan's guidance, Dalaran grew rapidly, evolving into an autonomous city-state of considerable power. At this time, the Magi of Azeroth faced suspicion and prejudice from the general populace. Recognizing the need for a sanctuary, Artigan proclaimed Dalaran as a haven for all Magi, a place where they could live without fear of persecution. Many sorcerers responded to his call, and upon their arrival they set out to transform the city into a beacon of knowledge, a center dedicated to magic and learning. Using their formidable powers, the Magi expanded Dalaran both in size and grandeur. They constructed gleaming spires that reached towards the heavens and built vast libraries filled with arcane wonders. Under the leadership of Artigan and the newly formed Magocracy, which consisted of the most powerful newcomers, Dalaran thrived as a center of arcane study and practice. The city grew quickly in population, and while only a small fraction of its residents wielded magic, the protection provided by these Magi allowed trade and industry to flourish. Crime became virtually non-existent, the dangers of the wild receded into memory, and Dalaran emerged as a decadent, extravagant paradise, a shining jewel in the crown of the human empire. Over the centuries, Dalaran forged a lasting bond with Silvermoon, a friendship that, despite being tested by time and trials, would endure for over 2 millennia. Although Dalaran was primarily a human city, it became a melting pot of cultures and races, attracting a diverse population. Among its notable residents was Xala'tath Sunstrider, the crown prince of Quel'Thalas, who, like many of his kin, came to study, live, and even govern within Dalaran's enchanted walls. As Jaina Proudmoore would later recall, some of these elves were the very ones who first shared the secrets of magic with humanity. In addition to elves, Dalaran also became home to gnomes, dwarves, and even the occasional goblin, each bringing their own unique talents and perspectives to the city's vibrant tapestry. As Dalaran's power and influence grew, the once dominant city of Strom began to fade into obscurity. The city-states that had sprung from Dalaran's early trading outposts evolved over generations, developing their own distinct customs and beliefs. These independent city-states became increasingly isolated, their focus narrowing to their own prosperity and security, leaving behind the unity that once bound them all together. As more and more Magi honed their craft within Dalaran, their unchecked use of magic began to unravel the very fabric of reality surrounding the city. The relentless practice of arcane arts, without proper safeguards or oversight, acted like a beacon, drawing the attention of the Burning Legion. Through the weakening veil of reality, demons began slipping into Azeroth, wreaking havoc and terrorizing the people. Faced with this dire threat, the ruling Magocrats had no choice but to seek aid from the High Elves of Silvermoon. The Convocation of Silvermoon responded by sending skilled elven wizards, who quickly identified the source of the problem. They warned that unless the Magocracy imposed strict limits on the use of magic, the situation would only worsen. However, the Magocrats were reluctant to do so. After all, Dalaran was a sanctuary where Magi had come specifically to practice their arcane arts without restrictions. Imposing limitations could drive away the brightest minds, causing them to take their studies elsewhere. In the worst-case scenario, such restrictions might even collapse Dalaran's economy, inciting revolt and scattering the Magi to distant lands. Regardless of where the Magi practiced their craft, the threat of the Burning Legion would persist. Instead of restricting magical practice, The Magicrats proposed a different solution: the formation of a select group of powerful spellcasters dedicated to defending against the Legion. Thus, the Council of Tirisfal was born, a secretive order tasked with safeguarding the world from demonic threats. The Council's most powerful weapon was the Spearhead, a champion chosen to track and banish the Legion's agents wherever they emerged. In addition to this, the Council quietly worked to educate the other Magi about the dangers of reckless spellcasting, hoping to mitigate the risks without stifling magical growth. While the Elven Lords shared the ancient history of Kalimdor and the Burning Legion, the Magicrats sent their own to catalog and study all human magic. These wizards eventually formed the Kirin Tor, an organization devoted to documenting every spell, artifact, and magical item known to humanity. Over time, the Council of Six, the ruling body of the Kirin Tor, rose to prominence and eventually replaced the Magicrats as the leaders of Dalaran. The city, once teetering on the brink of disaster, found new strength in this balance between unbridled magic and vigilant defense, securing its place as a bastion of arcane knowledge and power. Under the watchful eye of the Order, Dalaran flourished as a premier center of magical learning in the land. Though not expansive, the city was a stunning masterpiece of towering spires and glimmering streets, where its citizens lived contently, well protected by the powerful magic that surrounded them. At the heart of Dalaran stood the Violet Citadel, the headquarters of the Kirin Tor. This majestic structure, named for the soft violet glow emanated by its stone walls, housed numerous libraries, research chambers, testing rooms, classrooms, meeting alcoves, and quarters for its inhabitants. Among those who found a home within Dalaran's walls was Elodie, a half-elf abandoned in the city as a child. Raised in the orphanage, Elodie eventually became a student of the Kirin Tor, his talents in magic setting him on a path to greatness. In the aftermath of the War of the Ancients, the Blue Dragonflight, left leaderless in Malygos' absence, entrusted their clutch to the care of the other dragonflights. These young blue dragons, disguised in mortal forms, sought membership within the Kirin Tor, offering their guidance and vigilance to prevent the misuse of magic once more. As a result, Dalaran became a haven not only for mortals, but for dragons as well, welcoming those who sought refuge and knowledge within its enchanted walls for generations. Over time, Dalaran's success attracted a growing number of reckless spellcasters, whose careless use of magic began to tear open rifts in the fabric of reality. One such rift allowed a cunning Nathrazim named xala'tath to claw his way into Azeroth. This demon spread his malevolent influence, sowing fear and distrust among the populace, while a series of devastating plagues gripped the city. As the affliction spread, paranoia took hold of Dalaran, fueled by the superstitions of those who did not wield magic, those who had always regarded spellcasters with a wary eye. xala'tath seized upon the fear, using the cursed blade of Apocalypse to fan the flames of hysteria. He further poisoned Dalaran by tainting its water supplies and food stores, deepening the city's crisis. The Council of Tirisfal, determined to root out the source of those calamities, confronted the demon. However, in the ensuing battle, they lost their spearhead, Ayrton Brighthand. Desperate for a solution, Meryl Winterstorm and Elodie devised the concept of the Guardian of Tirisfal, a powerful champion who could be imbued with a portion of the Council's collective power. Through a complex and dangerous ritual, Elodie became the first Guardian, wielding immense strength to banish xala'tath from Azeroth, saving Dalaran and Tirisfal glades from certain ruin. For over a millennium, the Guardian of Tirisfal waged a secret war against the Burning Legion, protecting the world from unseen threats while Dalaran continued to thrive as a hub of arcane knowledge and research. Around 1200 years before the Dark Portal, the Empire fractured into 7 independent kingdoms. Later, it was discovered that Dalaran had been built atop a massive ley line, further cementing its status as a center of magical power. Around 800 years before the Dark Portal, the Guardians of Tirisfal continued their tireless vigil, with new Guardians rising to take up the mantle as others retired in peace or fell in battle against the agents of the Burning Legion. Throughout these years, Dalaran remained safe, shielded by the watchful presence of the Guardian. For several centuries, Scavel held this prestigious role until he was succeeded by Aegwynn, a formidable and determined mage. 600 years ago, during one of Aegwynn's infrequent visits to Dalaran, the Council of Tirisfal demanded that she step down as guardian. Aegwynn, however, was not one to be easily swayed. She accused the council of abusing its power, manipulating the politics of the Seven Kingdoms, and insisted that leaving the fate of Azeroth in their hands would spell disaster for the world. Her defiance angered the council, who resolved to strip her of her powers if she refused to relinquish them willingly. In response, the council formed the Tiris Guard, an elite order of magi armed with relics and weapons specifically designed to weaken the Guardian's formidable powers. After years of rigorous training, these skilled and determined hunters set out on a mission to track down Aegwynn and bring her back to Dalaran, a task that would test their resolve and the strength of their convictions. About 500 years before the Dark Portal's opening, the Black Dragon Syntheria, once Deathwing's prime consort, devised a sinister plan to cripple the Kirin Tor by casting a curse that rendered all of the city's wizards powerless. However, her scheme was thwarted by the intervention of Corialstraz, the consort of Alexstrasza. In the end, Syntheria's own magic turned against her, leading most to believe that she perished in her failed attempt to bring down Dalaran. Now 75 years before the First War, Stormwind's king, Barathan Rin, sought aid from the kingdoms of Lordaeron, Dalaran, and others during the Null War. However, his pleas fell on deaf ears. The larger, wealthier nations saw little benefit in helping the smaller, more rural Stormwind, as it was largely self-sufficient and trade between them was minimal. 21 years before the Dark Portal's opening, Azeroth enjoyed a period of relative peace, during which Dalaran became renowned for its extraordinary advancements in the arcane arts and other academic pursuits. Yet even before the orcs arrived, the human kingdoms of Lordaeron were entangled in their own challenges and political maneuverings, each vying for power in an intricate game of diplomacy and rivalry. As time passed, the Kirin Tor mages turned their attention to the mysterious guardian Medivh. Around the onset of the First War, they dispatched a young apprentice, Khadgar, to the eerie tower of Karazhan to serve under Medivh and uncover the secrets surrounding the Guardian. Several mages tasked Khadgar with gathering information about the tower and its mysterious master. Among these was Guzba, a scholar of demon lore who became the first in a series of victims claimed by strange demonic killings that swept across the Eastern Kingdoms. 7 mages of the Violet Citadel followed, meeting their ends under equally mysterious circumstances, including the respected archmage Arexis. Unbeknownst to most, all of these mages except Guzba were secret members of the Council of Tirisfal, and the one responsible for their deaths was none other than Medivh himself, possessed by the Dark Titan Sargeras. As the First War erupted, the Wizards of Stormwind were initially curious, then horrified by the emergence of the Orcish horde. They sent numerous letters to Dalaran, first detailing the orcs' strange appearance, and later pleading for assistance as the situation worsened. While the northern mages acknowledged the orcs as a potential threat, they dismissed them as little more than a local issue, confined to the southern continent, and thus did little to offer aid. In the shadows, Deathwing, disguised as the human noble Davil Prestor, manipulated events in Lordaeron. He spread rumors that the orcish tales were mere fabrications, concocted to divert attention from the growing unrest among human rebels. His subtle magic also clouded the minds of those who might have taken Stormwind's warning seriously, ensuring that the cries for help went largely unanswered. After Stormwind fell to the orcish horde, the nation attended the Council of 7 Nations being represented by the Archmage Antonidas. The council's discussions were intense, filled with heated debates about how best to respond to the growing threat. Turallion broke up the discussions with a stirring speech, bringing Prince Varian Rin to his side. He said, "You must forget your old differences. If you underestimate the orcs, every kingdom will suffer Stormwind's fate. Your cities will burn and your children will become orphans much like Varian here. That is, if your children survived at all. The orcs are not merciful people. You stand at a crossroad. If you fail to unite, history would know humanity as a people who were too proud to band together. A people who'd had a chance to save Azeroth, but instead had thrown it all away over politics and illusions of power. If we unite into the Alliance, we could change history. We could become Azeroth's guardians. After all, no other race in the known world has humanity's resources, its strength of leadership, or its bravery. Following Turalian's stirring speech, Antonidas pledged Dalaran's support to the newly formed Alliance of Lordaeron. To solidify this alliance, Khadgar was appointed as Dalaran's liaison, ensuring close cooperation between the magical city and its allies. During the Second War, Dalaran was renowned as the home of the Four Towers, sanctuaries for the most powerful sorcerers in the land. As the conflict escalated, Dalaran committed vast resources and many skilled magi to the war effort. Among them were former students of the Conjurers of Azeroth, who sought to honor their fallen mentors from the First War by standing resolute in defense of the realm. Whether within the hallowed halls of their sanctums or on the battlefield of Lordaeron, these mages fought with unwavering determination. The war brought its own share of hardships to Dalaran. Some of its citizens were captured by the treacherous kingdom of Alterac, and the city itself suffered an attack by the orcs. In response, the wizards channeled their power into a powerful artifact known as the Eye of Dalaran, using it to restore the city's fallen spires and rebuild Dalaran to its former glory. Despite the devastation, the Magi of Dalaran remained steadfast, raising their city from the ashes and continuing their vital role in the Alliance's fight against the Horde. Even after the destruction of the Dark Portal, the Kirin Tor noticed that a lingering rift still connected Azeroth to the shattered world of Draenor. To keep a vigilant eye on the dangerous connection, they collaborated with other Alliance nations to construct Netherguard Keep, a fortress designed to monitor and defend against any potential threats emerging from the rift. In the aftermath of the conflict, Dalaran strongly advocated for the imprisonment of the orcs, driven by a desire to study their strange magics and the ores they brought from Draenor. The Kirin Tor believed that by understanding the orcs' mystical powers, they could better prepare for any future conflicts, arming themselves with the knowledge needed to exploit the orcs' strengths and weaknesses. However, the reopening of the Dark Portal by the Horde of Draenor reignited the threat. Terran Gorefiend and his Death Knights, under orders to retrieve the powerful Eye of Dalaran, launched a daring assault. With the aid of Deathwing and his Black Dragonflight, they orchestrated a fierce attack on Dalaran's outer defenses, creating chaos that allowed Gorefiend and his followers to slip into the city unnoticed. As the Magi rushed to fend off the dragons, the Death Knights infiltrated the arcane vault and successfully seized the artifact. Despite the efforts of Archmage Antonidas and his fellow Magi, who fought valiantly to protect their city, the Death Knights escaped with the Eye, retreating to Draenor. Determined to end the threat once and for all, the Alliance launched an expedition to Draenor. Among the forces sent was a group of Kirin Tor wizards and Dalaranian citizens led by Archmage Vargoth. They established Kirin Var village on the shores of the Devouring Sea, in Farallon. However, when Draenor was torn apart in a cataclysmic explosion, the land was transformed into the chaotic Netherstorm. The survivors of Kirin Var village found themselves trapped in this twisted landscape, where they endured for 17 long years, isolated from the world they once knew. After the invasion of Draenor, Deathwing recognized the threat Dalaran posed to his carefully maintained disguise as Davil Prestor. Seeking to undermine the wizards and sow discord within the Alliance, he manipulated the human kings during the Alterac crisis, positioned himself as the future ruler of Alterac. However, his exclusion of the Kirin Tor from these negotiations did not go unnoticed, and the mages began to grow suspicious of his intentions. Despite his cunning, Deathwing's plans unraveled after the Battle of Grim Batal. Defeated and forced into hiding, his alter ego, Davil Prestor, mysteriously vanished from the royal court of Lordaeron, leaving behind unanswered questions and growing doubts among the Alliance members. In the years that followed, Archmage Antonidas grew increasingly concerned about the behavior of Kel'Thuzad, a prominent member of the Council of Six. Rumors circulated that Kel'Thuzad had begun experimenting with necromancy, a dark and forbidden branch of the arcane arts. Fearing for the safety and reputation of Dalaran, and wary of provoking the ire of the people of Lordaeron, the leaders of the Kirin Tor decided to act. They ordered a search of Kel'Thuzad's properties, confiscating and destroying any items tainted by dark magic. Antonidas personally warned xala'tath that he would be stripped of his rank, holdings, and exiled from both Dalaran and Lordaeron if he continued down this dangerous path. Rather than heeding the warning, xala'tath chose to leave Dalaran, abandoning his place among the Kirin Tor. He soon pledged his allegiance to the Lich King, becoming the leader of the Cult of the Damned and setting the stage for a dark and terrible future. As the Alliance of Lordaeron struggled to maintain his unity, tensions mounted following the departure of Quel'Thalas, which blamed human leadership for the burning of their forest during the Second War. This exit, combined with Thrall's liberation of the Orcish internment camps, prompted the kingdoms of Gilneas and Stromgarde to withdraw from the Alliance as well. Despite these defections, several kingdoms, including Dalaran, made it clear that they were committed to ensuring the Alliance's survival. Dalaran, though steadfast in its loyalty to the fractured alliance, was known for its political aloofness and secrecy. The Magi of the Kirin Tor preferred to remain above the fray of ordinary politics, and the city's gates were seldom open to outsiders. Even visiting royalty found themselves met with caution and restraint. During the trial of Tyrion Fordring in Stratholme, Archmage Antonidas served as one of the 4 jurors representing Dalaran. Like his fellow judges, Antonidas was stunned when Tyrion openly admitted his guilt of helping the orc named Eitrigg and stopping his execution, leading to the paladin's excommunication and exile. This moment underscored the stern and uncompromising nature of the Kirin Tor, even as they navigated the complex and often turbulent political landscape of the time. By the time of the Third War, Dalaran had become renowned as the home of an immense library, housing countless books and tomes that held the collective knowledge of human and high elven magic. The city stood as a beacon of arcane power, with most contemporary mages pledging their allegiance to Dalaran and the ruling body of the Kirin Tor. Within the city's mystical halls of magic, mages and priests devoted themselves to the study of their mysterious arts, honing their skills under the guidance of the Kirin Tor. As the Kirin Tor began to investigate a mysterious plague spreading across the northern lands, Dalaran's ambassador to King Tyrannus Menethil II proposed placing the affected villages under strict quarantine. However, the King of Lordaeron, wary of causing further suffering to his people, refused to impose such measures without solid proof of the threat. As the Third War erupted, the magocracy of Dalaran faced a dire internal challenge. Some of the brightest minds, seduced by the allure of dark magic, turned their backs on the light and pledged themselves to Lich King Ner'zhul. In exchange for their souls, they were granted dominion over the dead, becoming necromancers in service to the Scourge. When the capital of Lordaeron fell, following the brutal murder of King Tyrannus by his corrupted son Arthas, Dalaran's Magi joined forces with the Alliance soldiers to combat the undead horde. However, they soon found themselves overwhelmed by the relentless tide of the Scourge. Under the command of the Demon Lord Archimonde, the Scourge, led by the Death Knight Arthas, turned their sights on Dalaran. Their goal was to seize the Book of Medivh, a powerful artifact capable of opening a portal for the Burning Legion's invasion. The Lich King, knowing the value of the book, orchestrated the attack with the aid of the now resurrected Lich xala'tath, who had once been a leader within Dalaran's own ranks. As the Scourge advanced, Dalaran prepared to face its darkest hour, knowing that the fate of the world hung in the balance. As the Scourge closed in on Dalaran, the Kirin Tor made the difficult decision to evacuate most of the city's civilians, leaving behind only a small but elite resistance force. These defenders were among the most powerful magi in the world, and they had more than just their formidable skills at their disposal. Dalaran itself was a weapon. Arcane magic coursed through the streets and powerful wards blanketed the city, designed to destroy any undead that dared to touch them. Archmage Antonidas, the leader of the Kirin Tor, knew he could not abandon Dalaran. The protection of the city and its vaults of ancient knowledge was his sworn duty. However, he managed to persuade his apprentice, Lady Jaina Proudmoore, to lead an evacuation, saving as many innocent lives as possible. Both understood that Dalaran could not withstand the full might of the Scourge. Jaina worked tirelessly in the days that followed, gathering refugees from Dalaran and beyond, eventually leading a diverse force of survivors, including members from nearly every Alliance race, as she set sail for Kalimdor. On the day of the Siege of Dalaran, the Scourge encountered fierce resistance, rivaling the defenses of Lordaeron and Quel'Thalas. The Magi of the Kirin Tor unleashed devastating barrages of arcane energy, wreaking havoc on the undead invaders. The city's arcane defenses and magical guilds joined the fight, their combined power a formidable barrier against the Scourge. However, this ferocious onslaught was merely a distraction. As the battle raged, Arthas, xala'tath, and the Dreadlord Tichondrius infiltrated the city. They systematically hunted down and killed the wizards who maintained the protective auras and arcane barriers. Finally, they confronted Archmage Antonidas himself. Despite his valiant efforts, Antonidas was overpowered and fell in battle, defending his beloved city to the very end. Even after Antonidas' death, the defenders of Dalaran fought on, but the combined forces of the undead and demonic reinforcements proved too overwhelming. xala'tath, wielding the powerful Book of Medivh, summoned the demon lord Archimonde. Recognizing the threat that Dalaran's magi posed to the Burning Legion, Archimonde unleashed his wrath upon the city. He gathered the latent energies that permeated Dalaran and created a magical effigy from the dust. With a single crushing gesture, he obliterated the city, bringing down its mighty towers in a cataclysmic wave of destruction. In the aftermath of Dalaran's destruction, countless lives were lost, with many trapped beneath the rubble of the fallen city, unreachable in time by their comrades. The once great city descended into chaos, its shattered streets now prowled by mutants, failed experiments, renegade wizards, and berserk water elementals. The devastation dealt a crippling blow to the Kirin Tor, leaving its surviving members scattered and its leadership in turmoil. The burning of Dalaran's great libraries marked an immeasurable loss, erasing generations of accumulated knowledge in a single catastrophic event. Despite their best efforts, the remaining members of the Kirin Tor could only exert partial control over the ruined city, and at some point, several of their magi fell prey to the deadly pets of Hakar the Houndmaster. In the wake of the Burning Legion's defeat at the Battle of Mount Hyjal, the remnants of Dalaran remained a battleground. The Scourge continued to contest the ruins, only to be joined later by Illidan Stormrage's Naga forces, who were sent to scout the area. When Prince xala'tath Sunstrider and his forces approached the devastated city, they found that Illidan had already begun his spell work on Kil'jaeden's orders to destroy the Frozen Throne. Drawing on Dalaran's powerful ley lines, Illidan amplified the Eye of Sargeras to unleash a destructive tempest upon Icecrown Glacier. In a desperate bid to stop Illidan, the Lich King ordered the Scourge to attack Dalaran, but they arrived too late. The spell had already been unleashed, causing the very land to buckle, with massive fissures erupting near Dalaran and across the world. Although Illidan's spell was eventually interrupted by the Night Elves, he discovered a tear in the fabric of reality near Dalaran, where xala'tath had once summoned Archimonde. Seizing the opportunity, Illidan used this tear to weave a portal to Outland, while Lady Vash and her surviving Naga escaped, taking refuge deep within the waters of Lordamir Lake. After Illidan's departure to Outland, the survivors of Dalaran began the daunting task of rebuilding their shattered city. The effort was soon commandeered by Grand Marshal Garithos and the remnants of the Alliance, who were quickly joined by Prince xala'tath and his Blood Elf brethren. However, their attempts to restore Dalaran were soon disrupted by a massive counterattack from the Scourge, intent on reclaiming the city. The ensuing battle became one of the largest fought in Lordaeron since the kingdom's fall. As the Scourge pressed forward, Garithos ordered the Blood Elves to intercept one of the undead armies before it could reach Dalaran. Facing overwhelming odds, xala'tath had no choice but to accept the aid of Lady Vash and her Naga forces. Their combined efforts held the line, but when Garithos discovered that xala'tath had allied with the Naga, he branded the prince a traitor. xala'tath and his Blood Elves were imprisoned in Dalaran's dungeons, sentenced to await execution. However, with Lady Vash's help, the Blood Elves managed to escape, fleeing to Outland and leaving Dalaran behind. The Kirin Tor's role in these events remained shrouded in mystery. While elves like Aethys Sunreaver later vouched for the Kirin Tor's innocence, others like Romoth accused them of turning a blind eye to Garithos' actions. The extent of the Kirin Tor's influence in Dalaran during this turbulent period is unclear, though figures such as Modera and Ansirum Runeweaver were believed to have been present. In the aftermath of the Blood Elves' escape, the remaining human refugees and paladins in Tyr's Fall Glades began to retreat to Dalaran, seeking refuge from the relentless Scourge. Tragically, many were intercepted and slaughtered before they could reach the city's beleaguered walls. In the years that followed the Third War, the surviving wizards of Dalaran returned to their ravaged city and erected a vast magical dome over its heart. Some believed this barrier was meant to protect the city from the chaotic violence of the times, while others speculated that the wizards sought solitude, a place to study and rebuild their strength in secret. The dome was opaque and utterly impenetrable by any known means, effectively shielding Dalaran from any new attacks as the Magi slowly recovered and gathered their power. In time, Archmage Ronan was chosen to lead the Kirin Tor, guiding the reconstruction of Dalaran and fortifying its defenses. The city's ruined outskirts became the domain of patrolling wizards and their earth elemental minions, ensuring that the area remained secure. During this period, Jaina Proudmoore returned to Dalaran and designed the Antonidas Memorial Statue, a tribute to her fallen mentor. Amidst the growing tensions between the Alliance and the Forsaken in Hillsbrad foothills, Dalaran maintained a presence in key locations, including Ambermill, Netherguard Keep, the Lord Emhyr internment camp, and parts of Silverpine Forest. Initially, the Kirin Tor knew little about the Forsaken, dismissing them as just another clan of undead. However, this view changed when conflict erupted over control of Ambermill. The situation became more complicated when Keegan Darkmar, leader of the thieves who had stolen the Bloodstone artifacts, sought asylum with the Forsaken. The Wizards of Dalaran, determined to prevent the relics from falling into the wrong hands, quarantined them in the Lord Emhyr internment camp. According to Shadow Priest Alistair, Ambermill remained a significant bastion of human resistance in Silverpine Forest, largely due to the support it received from the Wizards of Dalaran. The village, perched atop a dormant leyline energy node, became the focus of the Kirin Tor's efforts to reactivate the node as part of the large-scale magical project. However, these plans were abruptly interrupted by the Forsaken, who feared losing their grip on the region if the Kirin Tor succeeded. The situation grew more complicated when the Deathstalkers, which is the Forsaken's elite spies, learned from a captured prisoner that the wizards at Ambermill had hidden important documents concerning the current state of Dalaran. In response, Menet Karkad, a high-ranking Deathstalker, enlisted the help of a horde rogue to infiltrate Ambermill and steal these vital papers. Meanwhile, in the Blasted Lands, the mages of Dalaran maintained their stronghold at Netherguard Keep. There, they focused their efforts on studying the effects of the Dark Portal on the surrounding region and its wildlife, striving to understand and mitigate the lingering dangers posed by the gateway to the shattered world of Draenor. During Dalaran's reconstruction, a group of 7 Dark Riders somehow managed to breach the magical dome that protected the city, and made off with several powerful artifacts from the Kirin Tor's vaults. Alarmed by the theft, Dalaran's scryers quickly identified the culprits, and a determined agent of the Violet Eye was dispatched to Arvedin's camp in Deadwind Pass. There, she enlisted the help of adventurers, urging them to recover any of the stolen artifacts they could find, knowing that even a single one of these relics could pose a grave threat to Azeroth if left in the wrong hands. The adventurers embarked on a perilous journey across the Eastern Kingdoms, confronting the Dark Riders in their quest to reclaim the stolen artifacts. When they finally returned the relics to the agent, she expressed her relief and assured them that these dangerous items would be safely returned to Dalaran, where they would be kept under watchful protection of the Kirin Tor once more. Before the invasion of Outland, Prince Xala'tath's Sunstrider discovered Kirin Var village, nestled within the chaotic Netherstorm. Under the cover of darkness, he led the Sun Fury forces in a devastating assault on the village, unleashing a powerful mana bomb upon its unsuspecting inhabitants. Master Daedalus Dawnstrike followed closely behind, commanding thousands of Blood Elves in a relentless attack against the wizards who call Kirin Var home. Overwhelmed by the sheer ferocity of the assault, Archmage Vargoth quickly cast a protective ward around the Violet Tower, hoping to safeguard the surviving villagers. However, betrayal came from within. Vargoth's own apprentice, Nabirius, handed over the secrets of the tower's defenses to the Blood Elves. This act of treachery sealed the fate of Kirin Var village. The Blood Elves swiftly overran the defenses, massacring the civilians and imprisoning Archmage Vargoth within the tower under the orders of Prince Xala'tath. When Alliance and Horde forces later arrived in Outland, Ravendwar, another apprentice of Vargoth, sought the aid of adventurers to free his imprisoned master. As they ventured into the ruins of Kirin Var, they encountered the restless spirit of Custodian Daiworth, who implored them to destroy the Lich Nabirius. Nabirius' continued existence was preventing the spirits of the fallen from finding peace. Nabirius' continued existence was preventing the spirits of the fallen from finding peace, and it was up to the adventurers to bring him to justice and restore tranquility to the haunted village. Shortly before the war against the Lich King, the Red Dragon Corialstras obliterated a massive Scourge army advancing toward Dalaran, delivering a decisive blow that safeguarded the city from imminent danger. In the wake of this victory, a new threat emerged. Malygos, the aspect of magic, declared war on all magic users. He deemed the lesser race's use of arcane power unacceptable. His campaign was particularly focused on the Kirin Tor of Dalaran. Malygos began realigning the ley lines of Azeroth, siphoning arcane energy to the Nexus in Caldera. The Magi of Azeroth quickly realized something was amiss, and a delegation of powerful Magi was dispatched to investigate. When the delegation arrived at the Nexus, Archmage Ronan and the senior members of the Kirin Tor were stunned to discover that some of their own had defected to Malygos' cause, aligning themselves with the Blue Dragonflight. The threat posed by Malygos, coupled with the ongoing menace of the Scourge, was so dire that the Magi of Dalaran took an unprecedented step. They pooled their immense power and teleported the entire city to the skies above Crystalsong Forest in Northrend, leaving only a vast crater where Dalaran once stood. Witnessing the aftermath, Corialstras was forced to acknowledge the spell as one of the most astounding and also potentially catastrophic feats of magic ever performed. Before the Alliance and Horde forces could reach Dalaran, the city found itself under a brutal siege by Malygos and his Blue Dragonflight. The once serene skies around the floating city were filled with the roars of dragons and the crackle of destructive magic. In the face of this overwhelming assault, Archmages Ronan, Modera, and Aethys Sunreaver joined forces, channeling their combined power to conjure a vast protective shield around the city. Despite the dire circumstances and the treachery of Craven, who was a mage hunter who unleashed the prisoners of the Violet Hold in a desperate attempt to cause Dalaran to crash, the Kirin Tor stood firm. Through sheer determination and arcane mastery, they eventually repelled Malygos and his forces, preserving Dalaran from destruction. In the wake of the battle, Dalaran made a historic decision. Traditionally aligned with the Alliance, the city opened its doors to the Horde, a move spearheaded by Archmage Aethys Sunreaver. Seeking to bridge the divide between the warring factions, Aethys reached out to his people in Quel'Thalas and advocated for the inclusion of the Horde in the city. The Kirin Tor, embracing this vision of unity, declared Dalaran a neutral haven, a place where members of both the Horde and the Alliance could exist, provided they upheld the peace. This bold move transformed Dalaran into a symbol of hope in a world ravaged by conflict. During the Scourge War, Dalaran became a pivotal base of operations in the fight against the Lich King, while the Kirin Tor also found themselves entangled in the Nexus War, striving to halt Malygos' descent into madness. In a sudden and ferocious assault, Malygos unleashed his Blue Dragonflight upon Dalaran, determined to reassert arcane dominance over Azeroth. His agents exploited a massive breach in the roof of the Violet Hold, infiltrating the prison and testing its defenses, putting everyone within and outside its walls at grave risk. Overwhelmed by the chaos, the Kirin Tor urgently called upon heroes from both sides. The Kirin Tor urgently called upon heroes from both the Alliance and Horde to help contain the inmates escaping from their cells. Thanks to these brave adventurers, the escaped prisoners were eventually subdued and re-imprisoned, restoring a fragile sense of security to the city. Despite this, Lieutenant Sinclair urged the Kirin Tor leadership to reconsider maintaining an ultra-maximum security prison within Dalaran, though her warnings appeared to go unacknowledged. As Malygos' rampage continued, the Kirin Tor recognized the need for a united front. They called upon both the Alliance and Horde to join forces against the mad aspect of magic. Reinforcements arrived in the form of Queen Alexstrasza and her Red Dragonflight, soon followed by representatives from the other Dragonflights who had also become wary of Malygos' actions. Together, these allies formed the Wormcrest Accord, a draconic alliance dedicated to ending Malygos' destructive crusade. Despite their best efforts to persuade Malygos to abandon his path of vengeance, the Aspect met their pleas with hostility, leaving them no choice but to launch an assault to the Nexus. In the end, Malygos was defeated.
I did what I had to, brother. You gave me no alternative. And so ends the Nexus War. This resolution pains me deeply, but the destruction the monumental loss of life had to end. Regardless of Malagos's recent transgressions, I will mourn his loss. He was once a guardian, a protector. This day, one of the world's mightiest has fallen. The Red Dragonflight will take on the burden of mending the devastation wrought on Azeroth. Return home to your people and rest. Tomorrow will bring you new challenges, and you must be ready to face them. Life goes on.
The victory marked the end of his reign of terror, but the scars left on Dalaran and the world at large would not soon be forgotten. When Bran Bronzebeard escaped from Ulduar, he immediately contacted Archmage Ronan with a dire warning. A living nightmare was awakening within the ancient stronghold. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Ronan swiftly reached out to both the Alliance and the Horde, hoping they could set aside their recent hostilities in the wake of the disastrous battle at Angrathar the Wrathgate. Unfortunately, his appeal fell on deaf ears, as the scars of that conflict were still too fresh. Undeterred, the Kirin Tor and the Explorers League sought out members from both factions, rallying them for a final desperate assault on Ulduar. The assault was grueling, with every step met with fierce resistance, but together they managed to reach the prison chamber of Yogg-Saron, the old god responsible for the horrors within Ulduar. Against all odds, they triumphed, defeating the malevolent entity and preventing its dark influence from spreading further. Following the victory, the adventurers faced another challenge, Algalon the Observer, a celestial being sent to evaluate Azeroth's fate. After defeating Algalon, they learned of his intent to send a signal that would trigger the world's re-origination, wiping out all life to reset the planet. However, Algalon offered them a chance to prevent this catastrophe by transmitting reply code Alpha to the Pantheon from a location close to the sky. Bran Bronzebeard, knowing the importance of this task, suggested Dalaran as the ideal place to send the signal. They returned to the city and met with Ronan, who, with the adventurers by his side, transmitted the code into the skies from the Eventide. As the signal was sent, Ronan addressed the citizens of Dalaran, celebrating their hard-won victory and the salvation of Azeroth. The city once again stood as a beacon of hope in a world fraught with danger. After the fall of the Lich King, Dalaran paid tribute to the brave souls who perished in the war against the Scourge by building a memorial in Runeweaver Square, aptly named the Dedication of Honor. This monument stood at the heart of the city, a solemn reminder of the sacrifices made in the frozen wastes of Northrend. At the same time, the efforts of the Sunreavers bore fruit as the Blood Elves were officially readmitted into the ranks of the Kirin Tor. Their invaluable contributions to the fight against the Lich King earned them this recognition, marking their return to Dalaran's fold and symbolizing a new chapter of unity and collaboration within the city's arcane order. Malfurion Stormrage ventured into Dalaran, seeking allies to combat the Emerald Nightmare and its sinister lord within the Emerald Dream. But when he arrived, the magical lit streets of the floating city were eerily deserted, veiled in a mysterious mist. To his dismay, Malfurion discovered that most of the city's inhabitants, including the powerful mage Ronan and his wife Farisa Windrunner, were ensnared in their own terrifying nightmares. Amidst the chaos, only Archmage Modera and a handful of exhausted comrades remained, valiantly holding off the shadowy forces that threatened to consume them. Despite their courage, they were too drained to join Malfurion's Dreamform army, leaving him to continue his quest with fewer allies than he had hoped. When the Alliance leaders later invited Dalaran to send a representative to a diplomatic summit in Darnassus, the city declined. The Kirin Tor, committed to maintaining their neutrality, chose instead to focus on their ongoing mission of bridging the divide between the Alliance and the Horde, rather than becoming entangled in factional politics. At some point, Archmage Eteric and the Magi of Ambermill severed their ties with Dalaran, using their arcane mastery to shift their entire town into a hidden pocket dimension. Within this secret refuge, they plotted their return, intending to aid the Alliance in reclaiming Lordaeron when the time was right and reinforcements had arrived. However, during the Horde's invasion of Gilneas, a Horde adventurer acting on behalf of Sylvanas Windrunner discovered the pocket dimension. The adventurer infiltrated the hidden town, confronted Eteric, and ultimately killed him, breaking the spell that kept Ambermill hidden. With the town forcefully returned to Azeroth, it was left vulnerable to the Forsaken, who swiftly moved in and took control. In a twisted turn of fate, Eteric and the residents of Ambermill were resurrected and brought into the Forsaken's ranks. They could be seen fighting alongside the undead forces during the final battle for Silverpine. their previous allegiances erased by death and dark magic. Meanwhile, between the Cataclysm and the discovery of Pandaria, Dalaran continued to hover over Northrend, a silent sentinel over the frozen continent, biding its time as the world below it changed. In a time of great urgency, Caligos arrived in Dalaran, seeking help to recover the stolen focusing iris. Archmage Ronan, understanding the gravity of the situation, directed him to Jaina Proudmoore, believing she might be the key to finding the powerful artifact. However, their quest took a dire turn when they uncovered Garrosh Hellscream's plan to conquer Kalimdor, beginning with a ruthless assault on Theramore Isle. On Caligos' advice, Jaina traveled to Dalaran herself, urgently requesting aid to fend off the impending Horde invasion. Ronan, initially hesitant to involve the neutral Kirin Tor in the escalating conflict between the Alliance and the Horde, faced a difficult decision. The Council of Six deliberated, weighing the risks of intervention. Ultimately, they agreed to provide limited support to Jaina's cause. The final decisive vote came from Aethys Sunreaver, who argued that standing idle would be tantamount to endorsing the Horde's aggressive expansion. With this decision, the Kirin Tor committed to aiding the defense of Theramore, marking a significant, if reluctant, departure from their stance of neutrality. During the devastating attack on Theramore, Archmage Ronan made the ultimate sacrifice, using his final moments to localize the blast of Garrosh's mana bomb. In a heroic act, he managed to teleport Jaina Proudmoore and a few wounded defenders to safety, saving them from the catastrophic explosion. However, in the aftermath of the attack, suspicions arose when it was discovered that a Sunreaver agent had been complicit in the Horde's assault. Aethys Sunreaver, leader of the Sunreavers, denied any involvement and vowed to atone for Thalin's treachery. Despite the tragedy, the Council of Six decided against launching a retaliatory strike on Orgrimmar for the destruction of Theramore. Instead, they made a significant decision. Jaina Proudmoore was chosen to succeed Ronan as the leader of Dalaran and the Kirin Tor. Her appointment marked a new chapter for the city as it grappled with the aftermath of loss and the challenges ahead. In a somber tribute, nearly every member of the Kirin Tor gathered to honor Ronan at his funeral. The ceremony concluded with the mages and citizens sending small glowing orbs of arcane energy into the sky, a final farewell to their fallen leader. In the wake of these events, the blue aspect Caligos joined the Kirin Tor, taking up residence in Dalaran. However, he often found himself on the outskirts of the city's magical community, sensing the distrust from other magi. This unease led him to frequently find reasons to be away, as he struggled to find his place within the Order. During the early days of the discovery of Pandaria, King Varian Rin sent Prince Anduin and an alliance adventurer to Dalaran with a crucial mission: to persuade Jaina Proudmoore to expel the Blood Elves from the city. The Sunreavers, loyal to the Horde, were seen as a significant threat to the Alliance's war effort. However, Jaina, steadfast in her desire to keep Dalaran neutral, refused their request. She envisioned Dalaran as a beacon of hope, a place where both factions could learn to trust one another and perhaps one day rise above the endless cycle of war. But this idealistic vision was shattered when Jaina uncovered a shocking betrayal. The Sunreavers had secretly aided Garrosh Hellscream in stealing the Divine Bell, using Dalaran's portals to infiltrate Darnassus. This act of treachery was linked to the devastating mana bomb that had obliterated Theramore Isle. Furious and feeling deeply betrayed, Jaina made a decisive move. She mobilized the Kirin Tor, alongside Alliance forces and the Silver Covenant, to purge the Horde from Dalaran. Despite Aethys Sunreaver's claims of ignorance regarding Garrosh's plot, Jaina could not overlook the role the Sunreavers had played in the catastrophic events. The only neutral city was plunged into conflict, as Jaina's vision of peace was replaced by the harsh realities of war. After Aethys Sunreaver refused to order his people to leave Dalaran peacefully, Jaina Proudmoore made the difficult decision to incarcerate him and the remaining Sunreavers. Those who surrendered were imprisoned in the Violet Hold, while those who resisted faced a grim fate, cut down by the forces of Kirin Tor and their allies. Anticipating such a drastic response, Grand Magister Romoth had feared the worst and led a daring strike team into Dalaran to rescue Aethys and the Sunreavers. The situation escalated quickly, plunging the once neutral city into a violent conflict. In the aftermath of the Purge, Jaina made a definitive move, pledging the Kirin Tor to High King Varian's war effort, effectively bringing Dalaran back into the fold of the Alliance. This action also shattered the long-standing alliance between Dalaran and Silvermoon, a partnership that endured for over 2 millennia. During the Iron March, the Iron Horde, with the aid of the Dreadmaw Ogres, launched a devastating assault that resulted in the destruction of Nethergard Keep. As the war in Draenor unfolded, while the Alliance Horde expedition focused on combating the Iron Horde, the Kirin Tor established their base in Zangara, located in Talador. While they maintained a friendly rapport with Alliance adventurers, they kept a neutral stance with those from the Horde. This neutrality was in line with Jaina Proudmoore's orders, which barred all outsiders, especially the Horde, from Kirin Tor grounds. However, Khadgar, ever pragmatic, made it clear that his personal friends, regardless of faction, were welcome. He even went so far as to say if Jaina had any objections, she could take them up with him directly. This approach highlighted the growing tension within the Kirin Tor, as Khadgar's open-mindedness contrasted sharply with Jaina's strict policies, hinting at the complex dynamics within the magical order as they navigated the challenges of Draenor. During the third invasion of the Burning Legion, Dalaran's forces in the Hillsbrad foothills were focused on reconstructing the ruins of the Dalaran crater, under the supervision of Archmage Cedric. At this time, Dalaran City was recognized as a neutral territory, striving to remain above the growing conflicts. In his relentless quest for knowledge to combat the demonic threat, Archmage Khadgar ventured to the Guardian's library in Karazhan. There, he encountered the spirit of Medivh, who attempted to persuade Khadgar to take up the mantle of the new Guardian of Tirisfal. The vision showed Dalaran plummeting from the sky in flames, warning that if Khadgar refused this fate, all he had accomplished and sacrificed would be for nothing. However, Khadgar, seeing through the deception, declared that he would never become a pawn of the Legion, and destroyed the cunning Nathrezim disguised as Medivh. Following the disastrous battle for the Broken Shore, Lady Jaina Proudmoore took decisive action, arranging for Dalaran to be relocated above Karazhan and Deadwind Pass to better protect the Eastern Kingdoms. The entire city was teleported in an instant by a giant blink spell. But this sudden move caused chaos within Dalaran. Shops were ordered to close due to the various disruptions caused by the relocation. Many citizens experienced dizziness, nausea, while others reappeared in the wrong places, becoming trapped in walls or other objects. The city was plagued by unstable magical energies, forcing some residents to flee. Recovery specialists like Fanny Frizzlepop, Brilda, and Grindel Doppelgink, along with the nurses at the First Tier Aid Clinic, worked tirelessly to address these issues. The Dalaran Merchants Bank was thrown into disarray, with its contents scattered, prompting Kirin Tor guardians to protect the bankers as they scrambled to restore order. Even Geppetto Joybuzz found himself in a precarious situation, stuck aboard a toy zeppelin circling the city. Meanwhile, the entrance to the city sewers were sealed off, and Crassus's landing suffered damage from rampant fell energy. Recognizing the immense threat posed by the Burning Legion, Khadgar believed that the Kirin Tor needed to combine the strength of both the Alliance and the Horde to effectively combat the demonic invasion. He called for a vote within the Council of Six to reinstate the Horde's presence in Dalaran, arguing that only by uniting their forces could the Kirin Tor fight the Legion to its fullest potential. Despite Jaina Proudmoore's vehement opposition, especially in the light of the recent betrayal at the Broken Shore, she was outvoted, with only Anserum Runeweaver siding with her. Feeling deeply betrayed by the Council's decision, Jaina angrily condemned the Six for their willingness to trust the Horde again, warning them to remember her words when the Horde inevitably betrayed them once more. In a final act of defiance, she left Dalaran, and Khadgar stepped in as the new leader of the Council, restoring Dalaran's neutrality. The Council later voted to allow Aethys Sunreaver and his Sunreavers back into the city, although they were not granted a seat at the Council of Six. As the Burning Legion intensified its assault, launching a direct attack on Dalaran, the Council took swift action, relocating the entire city to the southern shores of the Broken Isles, near Azuna. This strategic move positioned Dalaran as a crucial hub for Azeroth's heroes, serving on the front lines of the renewed war against the Legion, as countless forces surged forth from the Tomb of Sargeras. During the conflict, the Unseen Path, a clandestine group of protectors, was secretly tasked with safeguarding Dalaran at the request of Archmage Khadgar. Unknown to many, the tallest spire atop the Violet Citadel was actually a powerful defensive weapon designed to protect the city, until it was sabotaged by the Legion. The Dreadlord Kathrin Atir, who had been imprisoned within the Nightborn Soulstone, was helpless as his power was siphoned to restore the weapon's functionality. In a bold move, Shieldbreaker Myrdan breached Dalaran's outer defenses and made his way to Crassus's landing, only to be defeated by the combined efforts of the class orders. Further escalating the threat, Fellord Beetrug and the Aranasi Sailorn were ordered to lead a demonic force into the city, infiltrating it through the Violet Hold. They enlisted Lord Malgoth to free the inmates, some of the Lich King's most powerful servants, and opened fell portals to unleash a wave of demons upon Dalaran. However, their invasion was thwarted when a group of adventurers rose to the challenge, defeating the demons and repelling the attack. The situation grew even more dire after Kil'jaeden's death and Illidan's use of the Sargerite Keystone, which brought Argus into the sky over Azeroth. The ominous presence of the Legion's homeworld loomed large, and Dalaran citizens grew increasingly anxious, their fears stoked by doomsayers spreading panic throughout the city. During the Fourth War, Dalaran maintained a stance of neutrality, refraining from offering significant support to either side, though King Anduin Wrynn briefly sought their aid during the War of the Thorns. Despite their neutrality, the Kirin Tor established a presence in the portal rooms of both Stormwind and Orgrimmar, providing access to the Broken Isles. Throughout the conflict and even after its conclusion, Archmage Khadgar, the leader of the Kirin Tor, remained in Karazhan, quietly observing the war's developments from his isolated stronghold. Following the war against the Jailer, the Bronzebeard brothers journeyed to Northrend, where they discovered that the Kirin Tor's presence had dwindled. The only remaining contingent was stationed at Amber Ledge, tasked with monitoring the Nexus. The once tense relations with the Blue Dragonflight had largely calmed since the end of the Nexus War. About 40 years after the Dark Portal had opened, the Kirin Tor offensive still maintained a presence on the Isle of Thunder. However, what was once a fierce conflict with the Sunreaver onslaught had mellowed into a friendly rivalry, reflecting the shifting dynamics of a world slowly healing from its many battles. When the Dragon Isles emerged, Khadgar agreed to assist Kalecgos and the Dragon Aspects in their struggle against the Primal Incarnates. The Kirin Tor, joining forces with the Dragonscale Expedition, established Camp Antonidas and Ronin's Shield in the Azure Span. They did this to protect the wild arcane magic scattered across the region. After the defeat of Farak, Kalecgos regained his full powers as the aspect of the Blue Dragonflight. Recognizing that his duties to the Dragonflights now outweighed his responsibilities in Dalaran, Kalecgos chose to step down from the Council of Six. His departure marked a significant transition as he turned his focus entirely to the needs of his kin. To fill the void left by Kalecgos, Drendon, a seasoned mage who had previously served on the Council during the Second and Third Wars, was appointed to take his place. As the Radiant Song echoed across the world, Thrall, Anduin, and Jaina journeyed to xala'tath, accompanied by Magni. However, as they arrived, Magni suddenly collapsed after performing a ritual to commune with Azeroth herself. Concerned and seeking answers, the group turned to Khadgar for guidance, discussing Magni's visions of the lost land of Khazalgar. In the ensuing discussions, it was Drendon who ultimately persuaded the Council of Six to undertake the monumental task of teleporting the entire city to this mysterious land. Upon hearing the Council's decision, Dalaran citizens worked diligently to prepare for the city's departure, ensuring everything was in place for the journey ahead. Meanwhile, Archmage Drendon entrusted the adventurers with a crucial mission: to reinforce the city's magical defenses, fortifying Dalaran against any unforeseen dangers as it embarked on this new chapter in its storied history. Shortly after Dalaran was teleported above the Isle of Dorn in Khazalgar, a shocking betrayal unfolded. xala'tath, who had been masquerading as Drendon, revealed to have been dead for years, shed her disguise and unleashed the Nerubians of Ashkahet upon the weakened city. As the Kirin Tor, along with the forces from the Silver Covenant and the Sunreavers, rallied to defend Dalaran, Illyria, Windrunner, and Anduin focused on rescuing the trapped survivors. Yet despite their efforts, many found themselves captured by the relentless Nerubians. Meanwhile, xala'tath began siphoning Dalaran's immense power into the Dark Heart from within the Violet Citadel. Khadgar confronted her in a desperate attempt to stop the devastation, but even his formidable power was no match for the ancient artifact. xala'tath used the Dark Heart to kill Khadgar and utterly destroy the city, shattering Dalaran into pieces that rained down upon the Isle of Dorn below, along with the teleported citizens. On the shores of the Isle, the remaining forces of Dalaran fought valiantly to protect the survivors from the Nerubians who continued their assault, seeking to capture or kill anyone they found. The aftermath of the city's fall was dire. Precious and powerful relics housed within Dalaran were damaged in the crash, some so dangerously unstable they had to be destroyed before they could cause further catastrophe. Ultimately, the Nerubian forces were driven off by the Storm Riders, allowing the survivors to regroup and move to the nearby settlement of Dornegal. The once great city of Dalaran lay in ruins, its remnants scattered across the landscape, but those who lived would continue to fight on, determined to rise from the ashes. And that's going to do it for this one. Hopefully you did enjoy. Thanks for checking it out. See you in the next one.